Hello everyone and welcome to our second last official meeting of this current council's time. I hope you enjoyed our ordinary meeting Wednesday the 16th of September. Live streaming. As the meeting chair, I give my consent for the open council meeting to be streamed live, recorded and published online in accordance with council's live streaming policy and meeting procedure, local law 2018. The chair and or the CEO have the discretion and authority at any time to direct termination or interruption of live streaming. Such direction will only be given in exceptional circumstances where deemed relevant. Circumstances may include instances where the content of debate is considered misleading, defamatory, or potentially inappropriate to be published. Attendees are advised that they may be subject to legal action if their actions result in inappropriate and or unacceptable behaviour and or comments. Virtual meeting statement. The COVID-19 Omnibus Bill 2020 provision allows council meeting attendance by electronic means. The requirement of the meeting being open to the public is satisfied by the meeting being streamed live to council's internet. In the event of a technical issue with the live stream, the meeting will be adjourned. Councillors are deemed as being in attendance if they can hear proceedings, they can see other members in attendance and can be seen by other members, and they can be heard to speak. A friendly reminder to please turn off your mobile telephones, or in the case of an emergency, please advise the chair and switch to silent mode. Now, as I've got this meeting started, I've just realised that I haven't asked any of the councillors to the councillor statement. So I will go to Councillor Jeff Ellis to read the statement acknowledgement, and when he finishes there, I will follow up and ask Councillor Bruce Kemp to read the councillor statement. So first of all, Councillor Ellis.
Thank you, Mayor Terzari. Statement of acknowledgement. Bass Coast Shire Council acknowledges Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people as the first Australians and recognises that they have a unique relationship with the land and the water. Council further recognises that we are situated on the lands of the traditional owners, the Bunurong Boonwurrung members of the Kulin Nation who have lived here for thousands of years. We offer our respect to their elders past and present, and through them, all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people. Thank you, Mayor Terzari.
Thank you, Councillor Ellis. Councillor Kemp.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm glad I came along well prepared. Councillor statement. All members of this council pledge to the Bass Coast Shire community to consider every item listed on this agenda based on the individual merits of each item, without bias or prejudice, by maintaining an open mind and disregarding councillors' personal interests so as to avoid any conflict with their public duty. Any councillor having a conflict of interest in an item will make a proper prior disclosure to the meeting and will not participate in the debate or vote on the issue. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kent. Everybody is present and there is no apologies. At that point, I might take the opportunity to go around the room and make sure that everybody can hear and see. So if I could just get a raise of hands and a can hear you, or a hi, or all good to go as we go around the room. Councillor Lasserve. And audio? Thank you. Councillor Rothfield.
Fine. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Lark.
Present.
Councillor Whelan.
Yes. There's the hand.
Councillor Kent.
Loud and clear.
Councillor Fullerton.
Yep, gotcha.
Councillor Brown.
Yep, no problem.
And Councillor Ellis.
Good to go, Mayor Terzari.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. So declarations of interest, I have two. Myself and Councillor Julian Brown have declared a conflict of interest in agenda item number H1, planning application 190399 for 1 of 8 and to 10 Kelty Avenue and 140 Mackenzie Street, Wonthaggi. Is there any other councillors that have any declarations of interest that they would like to report? No. Okay. We move on to confirmation of minutes. So the special meeting held on the 19th of August 2020. Can I have somebody, the minutes of the special meeting dealing with the Wonthaggi Cemetery Trust business and San Remo Cemetery Trust business held on the 19th of August to be confirmed? Could I have somebody move and second that motion? Councillor Rothfield, and second, Councillor Ellis, and all in favour? Councillor Tassari, Lasser, Rothfield, Clark, Whelan, Kent, Fullerton, Brown and Ellis. Carried. Ordinary meeting held on the 19th of August 2020, and we all remember that one. That was a marathon. So the minutes of the ordinary, the over 4-hour meeting that was held on the 19th of August 2020 to be confirmed. Can I have somebody move and second? Councillor Kent, and seconded Councillor Fullerton. All in favour? Councillor Tassari, Lasser, Rothfield, Lark, Whelan, Kent, Fullerton, Brown, Ellis. Carried. Okay, that brings us to public question time, of which we have quite a few. So in order to not put anyone to sleep listening to my voice for the time that this is going to take, there is quite a lot of questions here. We will, I will read out the question, and our CEO, Ms. Ali Wasty, will read the responses. So question number 1, and there is two parts to question number 1 by Prue Jolly. It's regarding the audit committee. Council's external audit committee members are Mr. Vincent Philpott, Chair, Mr. Tim Large, and Mr. Homey. Mr. Homey, would you please provide the names of their companies and contact details? And part 2, Council's audit committee has held a number of meetings during the 2019-20 financial year. Would you please provide copies of the minutes of the last 2 audit committee meetings? Ms. Wasty.
Through the Mayor, the independent members of Council's Audit and Risk Committee are appointed as individuals, not as representatives of any company. Their contact details are not publicly available. Minutes of the Audit and Risk Committee are confidential and cannot be released. An outline of the items discussed is included in the Council report when the minutes are tabled. The minutes of the 4th of December 2019 and 4th of March 2020 Audit Committee meetings were tabled at the 17th of June 2020 Council meeting.
Thank you. Question number 2 is from Stacey Dagg, and it's regards 2 questions as well regarding the Council's finances. Why did Council have 44,040,000 invested on the 30th of June 2020 and continued investments in term deposits and shares totaling 44,040,000 at the 31st of the 7th, 2020 of cash money when capital work projects available for construction and jobs were not started or completed during 2019-2020, when the total income of Council was around $90 million. And part 2, project 2001 is for a capital works project at Pioneer Bay. Council included in the total cost a contingency cost of $329,083. What is the scope of works for the contingency, additional works, and who will be paid part or full the contingency costs? Have funds been paid? Ms. Wasty.
Through the Mayor, Council invests its revenue in accordance with its adopted investment policy in short-term cash and term deposits. This included $8.14 million in cash. At year-end, Council was holding $54.18 million in cash and term deposits. These investments support Council's cash reserves, which include funding for capital projects that are being carried forward to the 2020-21 financial year. Other financial reserves include funding allocations for strategic works, landfill rehabilitation, grants received in advance, developer contributions for open space, and the repayment of the local government funding vehicle. Council provides a contingency which is typically in the order of 5 to 10% when it awards contracts for capital works. The contingency amount needs to be within the council budget and is only drawn on when there is a valid reason, e.g. latent site conditions, contaminated soil, asbestos removal. When a budget change is required, a council resolution is required to increase the project budget.
Thank you, Ms. Wasey. Question 3 is from Kevin Griffin, and its topic is contract variation approach. As council effectively acknowledged that it made no effort to resist or reduce the massive cost increase recently imposed by Cleanaway/Montague Recyclers, will council advise if its ongoing approach to contract variations will remain to be that of passive acceptance and simply passing the costs directly on the ratepayers and residents?
Through the Mayor. Under Council's procurement delegations framework, all contract expenditure variations that are outside budget allocations need to be approved by Council. This is a stringent control that ensures Council are made aware of all requests for contract variations that are outside budget, including the reasons for these.
Thank you, Ms. Wasey. Question 4 is from Michael Guz, and it's regarding council's finances. Council reported at the 19th of the 8th, 2020 council meeting $46,040,000 of investments at the 30th of the 6th, 2020 and $44,040,000 at the 31st of the 7th, 2020 when answering similar questions from 2 community members. Where can I read all details of the investment portfolio for the 30th of the 6th, 2020 in council's records? Please advise and provide details. On the 31st and part 2, on the 31st of the 3rd, 2020, council reported 145 capital works projects, which included financial details. Where can I read all details, including the financials, for all completed capital works projects listed as part of the 2019-2020 financial year as of years end 30th of the 6th, 2020? Please advise and provide details.
Through the Mayor. Details of Council's investment holdings will be included in the year-end financial statements to be presented to Council for their consideration in October. Our report on Council's investments portfolio will also be included. The 2019-20 financial statements and audit review has been delayed due to COVID-19 pandemic. Councils have been given an extension to 30th of November 2020 for the lodgement of their annual reports with the Minister. A statement of capital works for the year ended 30th of June 2020 will be reported as part of the annual financial statements. This includes a comparison of actual capital expenditure to budget and explanations of material variances. The financial statements will be presented to Council for consideration at the October Council meeting and incorporated in their entirety in the annual report.
Question 5 is from Graham Jolly, and there's also 2 questions in this, and it's regarding capital works projects. Contingency costs ranging 5 to 10% are added to a tender contract cost. What are the contingency costs for tender numbers 19012, 19009, 19024, 19016, 19013, and their average used contingency cost and variances? Part 2, what are the details of the final overall contingency costs expensed, explaining their scope of works and reason why the cost was used, and who was paid the contingency costs for these capital works projects? Tender numbers 19012, 19009, 19014, 19016 and 19013.
Through the Mayor. The contingency percentage amount is determined by the type of project, its size and complexity. All capital works budgets are approved with an appropriate amount of contingency. This is consistent with council's procurement policy and ensures projects are not delayed once they have commenced. Any increase in cost above the overall budget amount would require further approvals. Any claim for payment against the contingency for latent conditions is not paid automatically. The approved contingency budgets for each of the 5 listed contracts were not paid in full. A breakdown of the contingency costs will be included in the minutes.
Thank you, Ms Wasey. Question 6 is from Melissa Dagg. It also has 2 questions and it is regarding capital works projects. Capital works projects for Bass Coast Council for the 2019 to 2020 year. Where can I read a listing for the total number of works listed, completed with financials? When looking at the Bass Coast Council's website homepage showing the tender listings for 2019 and 2020, why does the listings only report 18 tenders from the 145 capital works projects listed as at the 31st of the 3rd, 2020?
Through the Mayor, the statement of capital works for the year ended 30th of June 2020 will be recorded as part of the annual financial statements. This includes a comparison of actual capital expenditure to budget and explanations of material variances. The financial statements will be presented to Council for in principle approval at the October Council meeting and incorporated in their entirety in the annual report. Council is only required to enter into a public tender arrangement for contracts with a value of more than $150,000 for the purchase of goods or services, or $200,000 for carrying out of works. Most of Council's individual capital works projects have budgets of less than $150,000. Council can also access a number of annual supply agreements that have previously been awarded following a tender process to expedite the delivery of the capital works program. This explains the significantly lower number of public tenders compared to the number of capital projects.
Question 7 is from Peter McMahon. There's also 2 questions and it's regarding the council budget. Can council explain how councillors Rothfield and Brown could be involved in the development process of the budget but had a conflict of interest when it came to voting time? And question 2, why council's draft budget had 3.08 million allocated to aquatics, which finished up at 2.825 million once passed?
Through the Mayor, neither of the conflict of interest that councillors Rothfield and Brown had related to budgetary decisions taken by the council as a collective when developing the budget. Councillor Rothfield's conflict related to her standing as a committee member on the Phillip Island Golf Club, which made a successful submission for funding of $20,000 for pergola, while Councillor Brown declared a conflict due to the inclusion of increased funding for the footpath gaps program in envelope compared to the draft budget. The $250,000 reduction in funding for the aquatics design does not represent a scope change. The savings on this budget are informed by advice that Council has on appropriate funding requirements for these 2 projects. The $250,000 saving has been reallocated to the Wonthaggi Activity Centre Plan.
Question 8 is from Richard Allen Adolphson, and it's regarding the quarterly financial report. Mr. Mayor, when will the 4th quarter financial report for the period 30th of June 2020 be published by Council?
Through the Mayor, Council will consider the financial statements and performance statement for the year ending 30th of June 2020 at the Council meeting on the 21st of October 2020. Council will also receive a report on Council's investments portfolio, and this will be made public as part of the agenda.
Question 9 is also from Richard and its topic is asset register. Mr. Mayor, Council has an asset register comprising all assets in the Bass Coast Shire Council. What is the book asset register value for the Cows Culture and Community Centre as of the 1st of January 2020 and the 30th of June 2020?
Through the Mayor, Council's asset register had a current value of $7,277,000 as at 1 January 2020 and a value of $7,391,000 as at 30th of June 2020 for the Cows Cultural and Community Centre. The majority of value for this is in the land. A breakdown of the asset class of the value of land and building will be included in the minutes.
Question 10 is from Mike Fincher and its topic is drainage in Mackenzie Street, Wonthaggi. As council has allocated money in its budget this year to remedy our problem, what approach will be taken to resolve this situation and the amount of money budgeted for this fix?
Through the Mayor, Council is progressing with an option to permanently remove the drainage risk in the vicinity of 102 and 104 Mackenzie Street. Some of the details of the option is confidential, so the budget and exact nature of the works will be shared with you when the information is publicly available. It is expected that the work will be carried out later in the financial year.
Question 11 is from Kevin Griffin and our topic is live streaming. Council previously advised the community that the implementation of live streaming would cost around $2,500. Will Council be entirely responsive, open and transparent by accurately detailing the community how it spends the almost $100,000 recently received from the state government for the purpose of enhancing live streaming facilities?
Through the Mayor, the purpose of the grant funding is to enhance Council's ability to virtually deliver services and community engagement activities. The funding will be used for video conferencing equipment at the Wonthaggi Civic Centre, Inverloch Hub, Granville Service Centre, New Haven Visitor Information Centre and Wonthaggi Depot. In addition, the council chamber will be fitted with audio-visual technology to enhance our live streaming capabilities.
Question 12 is from Keith Godridge. Topic is Inverloch Surf Parade. I wish to ask the following questions to the council. Council's progress on the shared pathway footpath project in Surf Parade Inverloch between Veronica Street and Surf Lifesaving Clubhouse. 1. When was Council's application for the request consent and approval submitted and to which government departments? And 2, what progress towards the application has been made since my question to the July Council meeting?
Through the Mayor, the planning permit amendment was submitted by council officers in April of this year and is now being considered by the Department of Environment, Land, Water and Planning. Officers are currently responding to the department's request for further information, which was received in August of this year.
Question 13 is from Andrew Marston and the topic is the Cows Cultural and Community Centre. Thanks to Council for the prompt release of the latest concept plans which promise a very exciting facility. What cost information has been provided so far and when is Council expecting to receive accurate project costs including all fit outs as well as construction?
Through the Mayor, thank you for the feedback on the concept report for the Cows Cultural and Community Centre, which adds to the positive reaction we have received from the community. Council has engaged a quantity surveyor to work in parallel with the design team to provide independent cost plans at each stage of the design process. As the designs for the Cows Cultural and Community Centre are further progressed, the cost plans will be updated to reflect the more comprehensive specifications. When the completed drawing package is finalised, a final cost plan will be procured to reflect the project construction and fit out budget as allocated by Council.
Thank you, Ms Wasty. Question 14 is from Philip Heath of the South Gippsland Conservation Society and there's 2 parts to the question. South Gippsland Conservation Society Inverloch's Beach Monitoring Report July 2020 recommends short-term protection at Wreck Creek and Flat Rocks through June renourishment. Recent storms resulted in Wreck Creek being under immediate threat. Will Council support the June renourishment program to avoid irreversible loss of this environmental feature and threat to Surf Parade? And question 2, given the apparent delay in securing approvals for the Surf Parade shared path extension proposal, will Council divert its 2020-21 funding from this project to short-term protection of at-risk environmentally significant sections of the Inverloch Surf Beach coastline referred to in Q1 to hold the line while the LCHA continues. Ms. Weasley.
Through the Mayor, the area identified is currently managed by Parks Victoria. The multi-agency regional and strategic partnership, RASP, is about to commence a local coastal hazard assessment and community resilience planning project that will inform the long-term management of the Inverloch foreshore. The group will continue to monitor the impacts of coastal erosion and undertake necessary works as required. The funds for the Surf Parade Shared Park Extension proposal are committed and the project is progressing, with consents currently being sought. Any decision not to expend these funds on the shared park would require a council resolution.
Question 15 is from Len Vandernoot and its topic is Coronet Bay Committee of Management. I seek guidance clarification on authority procedures entrusted to Coronet Bay Committee of Management and seek instruction for recourse when the Coronet Bay Committee of Management, or the CBCOM, repeatedly veto requests for a storage shed of Community Bay Community Garden Association, for which the CBCGA sought help from council, who sadly referred them back to the CBCOM. Ms. Wasty.
Through the Mayor, the Community Asset Committee are currently working with council officers to provide fit-for-purpose storage in existing structures to assist the gardening group.
Okay, so we now have a large number of questions all regarding the wind turbine. So what I'll do, as I did last month, is I will name each person that has written in a question and I will read the questions, and then at the end, Ms. Wasty will read out a response that will cover all of the responses. So here we go. Question number 16 is from Monica. It's got 2 questions regarding the wind turbine being erected at Surf Beach. What local law is applicable to consider the impact of noise in advance of the structure being erected? Given the nature of soil in the area, particularly during wet weather, and the lack of substantial foundations for the wind turbine, what assurance can council provide that the structure will be safe to the neighbours? Question number 17 is from Lou Pecora, and also 2 questions. Does council have the power to put an injunction on the erection of the turbine until it completes its investigation? If so, has council done so? And if not, why not? Question 18 is from Vicky Burke. It also has 2 questions. In reference to the wind turbine currently being erected in Surf Beach, I would like to know if council will be responsible for compensation claims for property devaluation due to the monstrosity. And the second question, will you be reducing rates due to properties being devalued? Question 19 is from Emmanuel and Mary Savas. Also has 2 questions. We have received email response from both the CEO, Ali Wasty, on the 27th of August and Donna Taylor on the 4th of September, and in both instances have been advised that they will follow up with updates, but we have not heard personally any more from either of them. What is the status of the Bass Coast Council's investigation into the current situation? If the structure over 11 metres is put up and it looks like the owner is well underway of doing so, our concerns are the safety aspects to not only our property, but also any person or wildlife that may be affected. Who will be liable if this happens? Question 20. Was the municipal building surveyor aware of the wind turbine installation, and did he carry out due diligence in the light of the Municipal Strategic Statement Review 2003, Part 3 strategic gaps in the Bass Coast Planning Scheme 3.1 Wind Energy. Question 21 is from Norma Van Rees and Anthony Fradkin. And there's also two parts. Has Bass Coast Shire Council investigated whether the wind turbine being erected will result in unreasonable noise from residential premises for the purpose of Section 48A of the Environmental Protection Act 1970? Has Bass Coast Shire investigated whether the wind turbine being erected will cause a nuisance for the purpose of the Public Health and Wellbeing Act 2008? Question number 22 is from Ian Juster. Under current planning laws, Council has so far been unable to stop the proposed wind turbine construction at Surf Beach. After the upcoming Council elections, what is the Council's commitment to amend local planning laws to prevent further installation of this type in residential areas within the Bass Coast Shire? Excuse me, 2 seconds. Question 23 is from Ray Carson. There's also two parts to the question. Will the Council request a stop construction of the proposed wind turbine at Surf Beach until all health and safety concerns have been fully investigated by Council? Did Council receive engineering computations for the concrete foundations of the wind turbine at Surf Beach? Question 24 also has two parts, and it's from John Trite from the Bass Coast Ratepayers and Residents Association. Council is aware that a large wind turbine is being installed in Surf Beach. What steps will Council take to protect residents from the potential health and safety risks and Council from any future liability, firstly during construction and secondly during operation? Bass Coast Planning Scheme 21.09/4 requires for Surf Beach high quality development responsive to the constraints of a site and character of the area, and limit building form to be a maximum of 2 stories in height, 7 to 8 metres. Please explain why these requirements are not applied to the wind turbine. That's it. Over to you, Ms. Wasty.
Through the Mayor. Council acknowledges the high levels of concern that the proposed wind turbine in Surf Beach is causing members of the community. A number of questions came in after the cut-off time will be responded to. Responses to all questions have been included in this one response, and each person who has submitted a question will receive an individual response as well. We are taking the feedback from the community extremely seriously. We acknowledge that a turbine of this size in a residential setting is not a good community outcome. Council officers have requested further information from the landowner to ascertain whether a planning permit may be required. Council officers will need some time to assess the additional information. I've personally contacted the landowner and requested the construction of the turbine does not proceed until this assessment has been made. To be clear, the size of the turbine does not trigger a planning permit, as the plans submitted by the applicant indicate that the turbine from the bottom to the tip is under 11 metres. A building permit is not required as it is not attached to a building. Despite community opinion and the opinion of some building surveyors in the community, this advice has been double-checked and triple-checked and has been confirmed by the Victorian Building Authority. The Victorian Building Authority have also confirmed that the turbine is an unclassifiable structure and therefore exempt from regulations. The Environment Protection Authority can only make an assessment on the turbine once it has been constructed, as it is impossible to ascertain noise impact beforehand. The site is also outside the Ramsar boundary wetlands. The Health and Wellbeing Act does not prohibit the installation of the turbine. At the last council meeting, I advised that I had written to the state government to highlight the lack of guidance within the state standard controls and have requested amendments to planning schemes to enable council review and oversight of domestic wind turbines. A response has not yet been received from the department. The Mayor personally took the issue up with the Minister for Local Government, the Honourable Sean Lean, last week at the Mayoral Advisory meeting. The Minister requested we immediately send him the details, of which we did. We are following up with the Minister to see if he has any powers at his disposal to enable him to intervene on behalf of the community. Council will pursue any and all enforcement options. For example, if the turbine is found to breach height requirements once complete, if it is completed, or if its use is considered commercial in nature, either through energy output or use for advertising purposes.
Thank you, Ms Wasey. So I'll just reiterate that hopefully all the questions have been answered there, including the late ones that weren't read out. We aimed to have answers to those questions we received answered in that comment by Ms Wasey as well. And I thank everybody for sending through those questions, taking the time to send them through. Okay, so petitions, joint letters and deputations and correspondence, we have none. So we now come to notices of motion. Notice of motion item number F1 22/5/20, establishing a cultural heritage flora and fauna reserve on the eastern side of Western Port. Councillor Ellis, if you could read your motion without speaking to it, please.
With pleasure, Mayor Tazari, thank you. My motion reads, it is headed establishing a cultural heritage and flora and fauna reserve on the eastern side of Western Port. The motion is that council officers prepare a report to inform Bass Coast Shire Council advocacy for cultural heritage, flora and fauna reserves on the eastern side of Western Port. Officers to consider relevant Victorian National Park Association reports and investigations. Point 2, if required, council will then create a strategy for such advocacy. And point 3, the name of this potential reserve to be decided by the cultural heritage stakeholders. Thank you, Mayor Tazari.
Thank you, Councillor Ellis. Can I have somebody second that notice of motion? Councillor Kent. Okay, Councillor Ellis, you may now speak to your notice of motion.
Thank you, Mayor Tazari, and I thank Councillor Kent for seconding this motion. This motion attempts to progress an initiative that grew from discussions around the future of the VinFast Holden Proving Ground in Langling. The original conversation about the back blocks of the HPG expanded to include adjacent remnant bushland and then the developing Biolinks corridor to the north and south of the area. We had a notice of motion I think the last meeting that covered a lot of that territory. And my aim here is to provide council with an informed position in regard to advocacy for upgrading the protection of parcels of bushland in that area through creation of cultural heritage, flora and fauna reserves. We could build on the work already done and that is being done by organisations such as the Victorian National Parks Association to inform that decision. These non-contiguous parcels of bushland are in a very hard area to define. It's to the east of Western Port and includes, but is not limited to, parts of Nyora, the Gerties, Grantville and surrounding areas, some of which are of interest to the extractive industry. I envisage our First Nations peoples as the traditional owners of this land as the land managers for this potential reserve and as the cultural heritage stakeholders as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ellis. Councillor Kent.
Thank you, Mayor. Councillor Ellis has said it perfectly. I just wanted to put in a word for VinFast, which is just a small part of this whole motion, but VinFast certainly has a history of assisting the community in different ways. And I just wanted to commend them, and I'm sure that they will come on board in regards to assisting this motion in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, councillor Kent. Would anyone else like to speak to or against this notice of motion? Councillor Brown.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to propose an amendment, please.
An amendment to the notice of motion?
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay. What would you like to propose?
I'd like to propose that for point 3, it read the following. Name suggestions for the reserve should be open to all. And I would further propose that we have a 4th point, which reads that council recognises that the Bunurong Land Council should be a key stakeholder in the naming process.
Okay. So I need to get somebody second that amendment. Can I have somebody? Yep, councillor Fullerton. Councillor, so Neil, sorry, I've just got to seek clarification. I'm a little bit behind at the moment, so do I need to seek it? So I'll just pause the meeting for a second. I'm sorry, I've lost my train of thought, so I apologise. Can I just pause the meeting for a second? Thank you, everybody. Sorry for that. I just had to clarify a couple of things. As you see on the screen now, that is
Point of-
the.
Mayor Tasari, point of order.
Sorry. Yeah, Councillor Lark, sorry.
I can't see or hear all of the councillors.
Okay, who are you seeing at the
I-
moment?
I can only see myself, you and councillor Lasserve. No others.
Okay, is that better now, Councillor Lark?
Yeah, I can see everybody now.
Councillor Lark, I suggest I'm guessing that's a setting. Governance, if I could ask you to put the notice of motion back up on the screen. Will we do this during live or should we do this on hold again? Governance, if you could put the notice of motion as per Councillor Brown's ask and seconded by Councillor Kent back up on screen. Councillor Lark, are you still just seeing a couple again?
I can only see you and I now.
Councillor Lark,
I've got view everyone, but that was my setting, but I can only see you and I at this point.
The bar up, Councillor Lark, at the top. There's a bar that goes up above that and you should be able to see everybody in smaller form. That helps.
so with this again, I'm going to again put the meeting on pause. Sorry. So if comms can pause the.
Okay, I've followed Councillor Lasserve's suggestion, and I've pushed the bar right up to the top. I can now see the councillors. Thank you, Councillor Lasserve.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Lasserve. Thank you, Councillor Lark. So I now ask Councillor Brown, is this the motion of which the amendment you want to make?
It is, Mr. Mayor.
Yep, and Councillor Kent, you seconded that motion. That's your understanding of the motion you seconded? The amendment?
Unfortunately, fortunately, Mayor, no, I didn't. I think you'll find that Councillor Fulton.
Oh, sorry, I wrote down, sorry. Apologies. Councillor Fulton, is that the amendment you understand you seconded?
Yes, it is.
Okay, so Councillor Brown, you want to speak to the amendment or the motion as it reads now?
Yeah, I would, Mr. Mayor. Well, thank you very much. Look, I think this just strengthens the notice of motion. My intent is simply to open up the naming process to everyone. I think if this is going to be a significant flora and fauna reserve, that we all have a stake in it. And in a sense, we're all stakeholders, aren't we? So it's simply about opening up the suggestions to everybody, and I envisage that there'd be a process of getting nominations, refining, maybe shortlisting, and eventually deciding. Now, it may very well be that we go with an Indigenous name, and it may very well be that we go with the Bunurong name. And if it's the best name, then I'm very happy for that to go ahead. But I think this would be a good process, and I think everybody living in Bass Coast should have a say if they want to have a say. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Brown. Councillor Fullerton.
Yeah, look, I agree with most of that. It's going to be a long, long time before this becomes a reality, if it does. But I'm happy with the broader community to be involved with the decision-making process.
Thank you, Councillor Fullerton. Councillor Rothfield.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I'm feeling like I don't particularly like the amendment, only that it's all very well to say that we all have a say and that may be an Indigenous name that actually wins out. But the fact is There's 30,000 people in Bass Coast Shire, and the vast majority are the European. That's it. That's no question about that. This is a chance for us to give the cultural heritage stakeholders, and that's not just the Bunurong Land Council, that's a wider group. Let them, they were the original landholders. Let them actually tell us what it should be called. I'm getting a sort of a sick of the fact that we seem to dominate continually, and I am supportive of the original motion. So I would be rejecting this.
Thank you, Councillor Rothfield. Councillor Whelan.
Councillor Rothfield said that well from my perspective. I want to support that sentiment. Otherwise we could sit down and come up with Ferry McFerry face, or we could come up with some English explorer perhaps. I think if we go with this amendment, it totally disrespects the statement of acknowledgement we've made earlier today. I spoke with the CEO of the Bunurong Land Council before the last meeting, and there were words along the lines of hard to be self-determining when you don't have land, or when you don't even get involved in the naming of a piece of land that will be a cultural fauna and flora park. I agree with what Councillor Fullerton said, that this will be probably a long haul, and without saying strong statements now in support of our cultural stakeholders, cultural heritage stakeholders, I think we disrespect them, even if we are putting that off into the future. And I think that the strong statement that's there in Councillor Ellis's resolution, I support.
Thank you, Councillor Whelan. Councillor Kent.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I'm in agreement with part 3, name suggestions for the reserve should be open to all. I personally think that every Australian should be custodians of the land, and we should have pride in Australia, and we shouldn't be just looking at what's happening in Victoria. We should be looking at other states and you name it, coal mines, devastation of their forests. It's bigger than just this little part. And if including the whole community in suggesting names brings people closer to this issue, then I'm all for that. But when it comes to the suggestion for number 4, I believe that ultimately the Bunurong Land Council should have the final decision. I would hope that opening it up for name suggestions would bring the whole community closer together and not alienating some people or them feeling alienated. But again, I support Councillor Ellis and Councillor Whelan in that the Land Council should hold the ultimate decision. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kent. Councillor Lasser.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Look, I think we're kind of getting into putting the cart before the horse here, worrying about what the naming of this is. I think the intent of the original motion should stand, and a cultural heritage stakeholder group would include the Bunurong Land Council, and I mean, they're one of the key stakeholders, so I think that was a good thing. So I'm not happy at changing it. I think Councillor was presented on behalf of the community, on behalf of the Land Council, and I think this final motion I would follow.
Thank you, Councillor Lasser. Would anyone else like to speak to or against the amended notice of motion, or the notice of motion as it reads there now? No? Councillor Brown, would you like to sum up or put it to a vote?
I'm happy if you put it to a vote, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. All in favour of the amended notice of motion as it reads on our screen, please raise your hands. Councillor Fullerton, Councillor Brown, and against? Councillor Tassari, Councillor Lasser, Rothfield, Lark, Whelan, Kent, and Ellis. So that amendment is now lost. We go back to the original notice of motion. So the original notice of motion put forward by Councillor Ellis and seconded by Councillor Kent and has been spoken to by Councillor Brown. And I had Councillor Lasserve wishing to speak next to the original notice of motion. So Councillor Lasserve, would you like to still speak to the original notice of motion?
No, I think, Mr. Mayor, that I've, stated that I felt the original notice of motion was a sound notice of motion, and I think that the cultural heritage stakeholder group would include all of those people that we've talked about. So it gives respect to the cultural heritage group and to the landowners. So I'm happy to go with the recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor Lasserve. Would anyone else like to speak to the notice of motion put forward by Councillor Ellis? No. Councillor Ellis, would you like to sum up or put it to a vote?
I'd just like to thank everybody for expressing their views. I think we've all had our say, and I'd like to put it to the vote. Thank you, Mayor Tazari.
Thank you, Councillor Ellis. All in favour of the notice of motion put forward by Councillor Ellis? Councillor Tazari, Lasserve, Rothfield, Lark, Whelan, Kent, Fullerton and Ellis, and against and abstain. Councillor Brown. Carried. Item number F2 is 226/20 Small Business Resilience Grants to be presented by Councillor Lark. If you may please read your motion, Councillor Lark, without speaking too.
Thank you, Mayor Tessari. The motion is that council reduce operating expenditure for 2020-21 by 1%, that 500,000 of the estimated operating expenditure cost savings be allocated to a small business resilience grants new program, specifically targeting businesses most impacted by the COVID-19 pandemic and with gross revenue for the financial year ended 30th of June 2020 amounting to no more than $125,000. The onus will be on the business operator to demonstrate they have been financially impacted by COVID-19, including the second wave. Preference will be given to businesses from the most significantly affected sectors, including, but not limited to, tourism and events, hospitality, creative industries, including the arts, health and wellbeing. The motion goes on to state the maximum grant shall be no more than 5,000, subject to the following criteria, and it lists 5, with number 5 stating fine-tuning of previous business support guidelines and customised specifically for small business resilience grant new program. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you,
Tessari.
Councillor Lark. Can I have somebody second that notice of motion? Councillor Brown. Councillor Lark, would you like to now speak to your notice of motion?
Thank you. Over the past 6 months or so, we have all had to work through unexpected and challenging times. And whilst many things we once took for granted may have changed, either temporarily or permanently, it has been inspiring to see the creativity of many businesses in response to the pandemic and the amazing resilience in the face of significant adversity. This new small business grant initiative will recognise the innovation of small business leaders who have reimagined their strategies and business models and have come up with new ways to manage emergency demands and evolving community needs, whilst also looking after the well-being of their staff and serving their customers. I am proud to support small businesses on their journey to adapt and transform during these times. I'll have more to say in summing up. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Lark. Councillor Brown.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, look, I'm happy to second this motion from Councillor Lark for a good discussion and a good debate. It talks a fair bit about grant, and I suppose that's an important thing in today's climate. But actually, I think it's not the be all and end all, and it's probably not the most effective thing that can help business at this time. I mean, I went and had a look at active COVID cases across Gippsland just recently. Bass Coast, we've got 0, Baw 1, East Gippsland 1, Latrobe Valley 7, South Gippsland 0, Wellington 0, and yet we're locked down as tight as she can be. So the best thing that can happen for small business and business in general is for the state government to start to lift restrictions and let business get back to what they do, get back to running business, and letting them help themselves. We're in this absurd situation where businesses are locked down, and so the governments are just giving all kinds of grants and all kinds of incentives, and yet they can't open up to help themselves. So that is going to be the long-lasting panacea for business. And in Gippsland, at least, the question is, why aren't we opening up now? Why aren't restrictions being eased? Because, as I said, in Bass Coast, the numbers are so low. So that's what's going to help business. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Brown. Councillor Rothfield.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Councillor Brown, I don't know if you know, but from midnight tonight, we jumped 2 stages and we're being lifted enormously. So that'll make you happy. What I just want to refer to Councillor Lark's notice of motion. He's talking about small businesses, creativity in response to the pandemic, and small businesses and their staff. Any business with a turnover of 125,000 is less than a small business. It's actually like a sole trader. So I think we've got to be a little bit clear on that one. And I think the idea of neglecting the medium-sized business in regards to who employ people is a big, big problem. But more importantly, the state government this week announced some $3 billion, the state government, right, announced $3 billion support package. And that's to help businesses survive and keep Victorians in jobs. That is so important for us, the Victorians in jobs, our own shire in jobs. And I mentioned last meeting about the prognosis in regards to the unemployment in this shire alone is absolutely shocking. And in addition to $3 billion, there's a further $290 million package targeting entertainment and hospitality. So my feeling is, rather than reducing our operating costs, which would mean one of two things: we either reduce our services to our community or we sack staff. We reduce resources. There's your two options. It's pretty simple. There's nothing complicated in it. We sometimes forget when we talk about reducing overheads or resources that we're actually sacking staff, and staff are part of our community. They are still community members. They might work for council, but they are community members. And I don't know why we would even suggest something like that. What we should be doing is using our resources, using our staff, in fact, perhaps increasing it, and having them train or assist businesses in tapping into that $3 billion support package. That will really make a difference. We need to really support the businesses. We have 3,000 businesses in our shire. If you look at the $500,000 proposed in this, you'd give each business $160, $160 each. That's what it would amount to. It's a drop in the ocean. We should not look in small increments. We should look at what we really could do, and that is support our businesses in going for and for some of that $3 billion that's been announced this week. Thanks, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Rothfield. Would anyone else? Councillor Kent, sorry.
Thank you, Mayor. I think both of the last councillors hit it on the head. Councillor Brown mentioned this is probably not the most effective thing. I never like asking a question if I don't know the answer. And it seems that 1% is 637,780. I don't know the answer where that's coming from. As Councillor Rothfield said, something has to be reduced. I haven't been told what's going to be reduced. It's as simple as that. I've been talking to a lot of businesses, and the businesses that I have been talking to seem very confident. They've got their heads above the water. They're going to survive. They just want the customers. And hopefully midnight tonight, other regional areas will send their community down to us. I hope they do. But our businesses are ready to go. They haven't told us fully yet what they want. I'm getting feedback that they want support in regards to effective media coverage, advertising, get the word out there that Phillip Island's waiting for everybody. But I haven't heard it clearly yet from the community. I'm waiting for those businesses to tell us what they need, not what I'm just going to give them in the short term. Simple as that. I want the big bucks, big returns for our bucks. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kent. Councillor Whelan, was that a hand up, I thought?
Yes, it was, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor
Thank
Whelan.
you. Yeah, look, Councillor Kent, Councillor Rothfield have really hit the nail on the head as far as I'm concerned. This is a one-dimensional proposal. There's no evidence of the impact into the economy of the last round of grants anyway. And that would be, you would think, the fundamental work firstly. To back up what Councillor Kent was saying in relation to council, what business looking for council support, I'm hearing the same thing from one of the peak organisations, that they're really looking forward to our economic development people, bolstered by the Working for Victorians people that we've put on, going into the community, in to talk with businesses and making sure that the businesses can really maximise their potential from the state government $3 billion grants that are going, support that's going out there. Council needs to be all about stimulus at this time and putting money into the economy to stimulate it. I'm an old Keynesian economist, and one of the things, you know, when things are flat, that's when there's role for government stepping in and investing, and that's what we've been doing with the wonderful Cowes Cultural Centre project, for example. And having these people employed here at Bass Coast are putting money directly into our economy. They're going to be consuming. That's the multiplier effect then that comes into place. This is what we need to be doing, not going off with a one-dimensional program that's going to limit council's ability to do this. I agree with Councillor Rothfield. You drop services, or which ones do you want to drop, or you drop staff, and look, they go hand in hand. You're going to lose staff here, which is directly contrary to the arrangement with the state government, whereby we actually take people on. They want investment in our economy here and statewide. That's why they're throwing such money at it. This nitpicking, rigid approach will get us nowhere.
Thank you, Councillor Whelan. Councillor Lasser.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. You know, Councillor Lark is, this came before us at the last meeting, I believe. I just want to make a couple of points. I agree with what's been spoken about by the other councillors. I think the businesses that I've spoken to, and being a small business operator myself, I understand the struggles that we've all been through in this past 6 months. And, you know, $5,000 grant would be better served to go to rate relief. And we've just passed our budget than anything of buying a coffee machine or supporting a business to present a grant application, which may or may not be accepted. And so it's their time and commitment in putting these things forward. And I noticed in your notice of motion, you do present that people who weren't successful last time to contribute. I think that this, I would wait for the review of the business and community grants program that we just put $700,000 into, to see if that was the effective way that we as a council supported our business sector. And you know, I'd like to know what the feedback from those recipients were and how their businesses are going. The Working for Victoria program, with the numbers of people that we're employing through that program, and the economic development team going out and supporting businesses, is a very, you know, that to me as a small business person would be something that I know that they would appreciate, and I certainly would. If we're going to review our business grants and our community grants in the future, it's really to the new council to consider that. We've just passed the budget. There will be a review at the mid-year budget review. Consideration could be given at that stage. You know, it's a feel-good thing. I understand why you want to do that. And but I just think at this stage it's a bit unfair to throw in a new program when you know, we haven't really assessed what happened with the 700,000 that was just allocated to the businesses in that first round. So I won't be voting for the motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Laserd. Would anyone else like to speak to or against the notice of motion? Is that a hand, Councillor Fullerton?
Yes, it is. Look, yeah, there's clearly an election coming up and the headline seeking is going to be council refused to fund more businesses. I think it's, I fully supported the last one when we had 700,000 to give out. I do not support the previous assessment process and I wouldn't support that again. The move from Councillor Lark in relation to the taking 1%, there's no indication of where that comes from. I've been constantly critical of Councillor Lark in travel costs, yet I see he's looking to have a legitimate reduction in that. I guess if in an election.
Councillor Fullerton, if I can ask you please to just speak to the subject and not to personal councillors, please.
No, it's not personal. I was just answering the actual application, the motion by Councillor Lark. So look, I fully support our businesses and I see them every day when I walk down the street and they're discussing it with me, their situation. I agree with what Councillor Rothfield said in relation to, what was that? Sorry. In relation to what she said about the number of businesses and the whole thing. But look, I fully support our businesses and I fully support council getting right behind them, but I don't agree with this particular this motion. There's a lot of feedback here, Mr.
Thank you, Councillor Fullerton. Would anyone else like to speak to or against? Councillor Ellis.
Thank you, Mayor Tazari. We've got a commitment. Bass Coast Shire has a commitment to lean and agile operations that meet the needs of our residents and ratepayers. And we are committed to continuous improvement that will deliver long-term efficiencies over a number of years. And I believe that the best thing we can do is stick with that strategy, stick with the budget that we've got in place. And the money that we save through continuous improvement can be put back into the community, and we can make sure that the advertising that we do as a regional organisation can bring people back into this area. There's a beautiful picture behind me of the beaches that people can come and visit. And I think it's better if we support those sort of initiatives rather than try and take money out of the budget. I can't understand, not trying to be funny, I can't understand how you could take 1% out of a footpath. But anyway, thank you, Mayor Tazari.
Thank you, Councillor Ellis. Councillor Lark, would you like to respond?
Certainly. I'd like to just cover off on three issues. Firstly, the proposal does not include direct labour costs. It's specifically included from cuts in staff and labour costs. So that's quite clear. Secondly, the example I gave of potential cost reduction, council is incurring $50,000 per annum of travel costs, is unlikely to occur going forward, giving them move to a virtual platform. So that was an example of where costs could be harvested. And I suggest there are many other cost lines that could be done also without affecting services or capital. The other aspect that was mentioned was sole traders. Sole traders have not been well looked after by the state government. There are thousands and thousands of sole traders who have not been able to take advantage of any grant from state government or federal government. So this initiative demonstrates a willingness to serve our small business community well, to protect our local economy and local jobs, and whether it be by facilitating restocking their shelves in them getting up and about. A sole trader, for example, who's not able to get a grant from state government to set up outdoor dining, whatever, in the hospitality industry and so forth. It will assist sole traders, mum and dad partnerships, and small companies, to name just a few. And this particular motion is designed to really target those very small operators who are an integral part of our Bass Coast Shire. That said, the reduction of council's operating expenditure by 1% to enable this particular initiative to provide further support for our local businesses is moderate and achievable, and therefore I put the motion to a vote.
Thank you, Councillor Luck. All in favour of the notice of motion as it reads, please raise your hands. Councillor Brown, Councillor Luck. And against, Councillor Tassari, Lasserve, Rothfield, Whelan, Kent, Fullerton and Alice. Lost.
And a division, thank you.
Division
Mr.
called
Mayor.
by Councillor Lark. All in favour of the notice of motion as it reads, Councillor Lark and Councillor Brown, and against, Councillor Tassari, Lasserve, Rothfield, Kent, Fullerton, Alice and Whelan. Lost. Okay, item number F3, public transparency policy. Please, Councillor Lark, if you could summarise your motion without speaking to it, please.
Certainly. Thank you again, Councillor Mayor Tassari. The council review its public transparency policy at the September 2021 ordinary meeting, following comprehensive communication and engagement with Bass Coast Shire ratepayers and residents by 31 August 2021.
Thank you, Councillor Lark. Can I have somebody second that motion? Councillor Brown, you left it to the last second. I'll give you the tip. Okay, Councillor Lark, you may now speak to your motion.
Thank you. I anticipate our community will hear many excuses as to why the public transparency policy was passed last month without firstly being released to the public for comment. And these would include the short time frame to adopt the policy, not much scope for the community to change the policy anyway, consultation occurred at state government level and no need for local engagement. Why, Les, for example, didn't you table an alternative motion to insist on community consultation and engagement? That's simple to answer. I didn't have the opportunity, given the original motion to adopt the policy was put rapidly to the Mayor before I had a chance to put an alternative. And in any event, I didn't have the numbers in support of any change to the policy. This is evident given only Councillors Brown, Ellis and I voted not to support the policy in the clear light of no local community consultation. That said, I suggest these excuses be set aside and that our community be given the earliest opportunity to comment on council public transparency policy as a matter of good practice.
Thank you, Councillor Lark. Councillor Brown.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Mayor. Happy to talk about this. What most concerns me about the new governance rules is this clause 47, and it's since we've passed it. In fact, it's really become clear to me how absurd it is. I encourage people to go away and actually read what it says. And basically, it says that councillors cannot review a policy or change a policy for 12 months after it's adopted. So, just have a think about that. I mean, to me, that's absurd. I mean, to me, it's an unwarranted restriction on a councillor's ability to change policies. I mean, some might see it as a radical idea, but councillors should be able to change policies. I mean, if councillors can't change policies, what else are we meant to be doing? So, yeah, it's just, I do scratch my head and wonder how it got in there and why it's in there. And we've got to wait 12 months minimum before we can change a policy again after it's adopted. So, I mean, I remember back to when we first came in this term of council, and one of the first things we did was change the procurement policy within weeks or maybe a month or two. Now, with this, we can't do that because we have to wait at least 12 months from when the last policy was adopted. So how on earth are we going to change all these policies if we want to do that? And councillors often have legitimate reasons why they want to do that. You know, often they're not playing silly games and they're not playing silly political games, but they have genuine concerns, and they're often reflecting real concerns within the community. Often a community member will come to us and say, look, there's a gap in the policy here. We need to put something in. And we need to be able to do that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Brown. Would anyone else like to speak to or against the notice of motion as it reads? No. Councillor Whelan.
I just want to make a couple of points. Is that you know, it's all very well for Councillor Lark to sit there and say he's holier than thou on this policy. It was expected at the last meeting that he would have moved an amendment on this to actually put in place the very provision we're talking about now as a notice of motion. I think a bit of grandstanding going on there. Now, he didn't do so, and I actually flagged at the time. If you go back and look at the recording of it, you'll know that I flagged at the time that I was expecting him to move it, and he gave us nowhere to go by not doing so. So, you know, you need to get your own house in order before you start criticising other councillors. And as for Section 47, not being able to change a policy within 12 months, how often do you want us to change policies? I mean, the whole point about a policy is it should not be done in haste. I know these ones were because they arose out of the work from local government Victoria being behind, I might say, and putting us under the pump to get these things approved in against a certain time frame. Now, that's exceptional. That shouldn't happen normally. And 12 months, so you can't sort yourselves out and organise a policy that should last at least 12 months. Want to review every month or something like that, perhaps. And what this allows for, if we have a situation, as Councillor Brown was talking about, is the sort of games we had last year in relation to the climate change policy, where one councillor manipulated the rescission process to delay the implementation of that duly voted for resolution for a period of a couple of months. Now, that's the sort of thing that can happen in relation to these policies. If someone loses out, they don't get their way, and so consequently want to keep coming back and changing the policy. So just aren't hearing me what's going on?
No, I'm hearing you. I'm listening. I'm just
People are waving their hands around. I'm wondering what's going on.
they're trying to get my attention, I think, Councillor Whelan. Please continue.
Yeah, sorry. Very distracting. So, yeah, I think people need to sort themselves out. We shouldn't put through a policy without due consideration. And, you know, the 12 months, I mean, it's up for the CEO. That's operational stuff then. It's up for the CEO to be managing this business in that interim period. Of course, the governance level comes to council. Once we set the principles, get out of the way and let the officers manage it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Whelan. Councillor Rothfield.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. First of all, I'd like to say that a policy is an adopted policy from us, from council. There's a whole process behind it, and it does take time. And it would be really inefficient to be able to continually just change on a whim items within a policy, because it should have been done correctly in the first place. But I would like to just underline something that I think that all councillors should be mindful of, that the previous local laws that we had That is what we have used and have been based on up until the new local laws, always had that provision in regards to 12 months, that a policy could not be changed within 12 months. This is not new. This has been there, and it has been there from when we were first in. So there's nothing new about it. But I just would like to say that you don't want to get to a situation where there's all knee-jerk reactions to various community demands. It should be orchestrated properly and adopted and go through the process of a policy change. And it's not unusual to have that 12 months in there. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Rothfield. Councillor Kent.
Mayor Tessari, I was just wondering if we could have a little bit of clarification from maybe one of the governance officers. We're all talking about nothing can be done for 12 months in regards to a policy, but here we have a motion that's talking about the policy being adopted in August, but a review in April. Can I have clarity as to what could be achieved in April, seeing that the obvious thing the community would be saying, well, that's not 12 months.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, the motion is that it would be reviewed by August in 2021.
That's what I'm reading. Yep.
So that would be over 12 months from adoption.
Sorry, Mayor, I've got a spelling mistake error on mine.
A spelling error or a reading error, Councillor Kent?
No. I've read the word.
Thank you, Councillor Kent. Have you finished? Yep. Councillor Lasserve.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Look, some of the comments that Councillor Luck made, just really is born out of frustration and anger. And I can understand that. You just moved on from the last notice of motion, and this one, it's a big stick approach. Well, I agree with your this public transparency policy. Well, we could review it in 12 months and have review it, public consultation, do the whole lot, hear what people have got to say. But the community consultation, and I'm very much for that, and having the community review it as a part of our local laws. So I think we just got to get on with it. We certainly can't be chopping and changing from one meeting to the next on policy, driven platforms, because it doesn't suit each individual. I think we've got to move forward as a collective and move with the community on it. So let's get on with it.
Thank you, Councillor Lasserve. Would anyone else like to speak to or against this recommendation? Councillor Ellis.
Thank you, Mayor Tessari. I'm finding this debate very interesting, and I've received an awful lot of emails from members of the community. I know there's a couple of resident and ratepayer groups that are very concerned about governance, and I've been listening very heavily to the information and the concerns they've been passing on. One of the things I find very interesting is the semantics of this debate and the language that we use. One of the examples that's just come up in the last 10 minutes is, did we have a reason for doing something, or did we have an excuse for doing that thing? I find that's one of the things that, if you look at the adverbs and adjectives that get thrown around, not only here, but in the general public, it kind of leads to a very heated debate. I know that causes concern to a lot of people. I'll just say, and I don't want to push the boundary by preempting any decisions of any councils that come later. But in 2017, in January, we did an extensive consultation with our community that informed our 4-year plan. One of the I think we got awards, we set records, we had, I think, 20,000 individual comments that we kept track of. They ended up going into 4 or 5 different themes, and one of those was governance. I would anticipate that in consultation for the 4-year plan that will come after our one, there will be a lot of discussion and consultation about governance in January, and that will inform the 4-year plan of that council, and can also inform the discussion that we have later as we look at the transparency policies and that. So I appreciate the concerns of the people that put this motion together. I voted against the original one too, as Councillor Lark mentioned, and I think that it will be an interesting conversation when the whole community is asked to say what they think about our governance in January. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ellis. Would anyone else like to speak to or against this notice of motion? Councillor Fullerton, I was looking at you. You were the last one.
Yeah, I picked up on that. Look, yeah, we've debated this over and over at the previous when it was mooted previously, I'm sorry. But, you know, this word transparency, I'm beginning to hate with it all. I don't see anything that's not transparent about anything that I do in council, and that anything that any others do. It's picked up by a few people as a catchword to throw around. But yeah, look, I understand we've debated it, and I was comfortable with the previous decision, so I don't see any great reason to change it.
Thank you, Councillor Fullerton. Councillor Lark, would you like to respond before putting it to a vote?
Yes, certainly. Firstly, I'd like to correct one statement that was made. It wasn't possible to put an amendment in the previous month. That was ruled out by governance. So I just want to put that on the record. A move to more stringent, in my opinion, somewhat unacceptable governance rules in relation to rescission notices, coupled with the 12-month time frame, make it impossible to move a motion to release the public transparency policy for consultation and engagement early next year. And whilst that, in my view, is an intolerable situation, the best we can do now is to put it on the agenda for council to consult and engage with our community in around 12 months' time, and perhaps yearly thereafter, as some residents and ratepayers have suggested. That said, I put the motion to a vote.
Thank you, Councillor Lark. All in favour of the notice of motion as it reads? Councillor Tassari, Lark, Whelan, Rothfield, Lasserve, Brown, and against? Councillor Fullerton and abstain. Councillor Ellis and Councillor Kent. Carried. Okay.
And a division, thank you.
And a division
Mayor.
called by Councillor Lark. All in favour of the notice of motion as it reads? Councillor Tassari, Councillor Lasserve, Councillor Rothfield, Lark, Whelan. You've changed. No, Councillor Brown, Councillor Whelan, and against? Councillor Fullerton and abstain. Councillor Ellis, Councillor Kent. Okay, so thank you for those three notices of motions. Brings us now to Mayor and Councillor reports. All councillors will have sent through their reports on what they have been up to in the last month, and if they haven't already, they will before the minutes are put up on the website. One acknowledgement or condolence that I would like to read out. I would like to acknowledge the passing of Mr. David Brown, who was a very close friend of mine and a very close friend of a lot. David, who passed away last weekend, I sent out, so we on behalf of council send our condolences to his wife Janice and the kids Sharon, Trudy, Darren and Simon and their extended families, of which they are numerous. David was an amazing person who was loved by everybody who came across him, always had a smile on his face and always had a good word about everyone. He was an incredible stalwart of the Bass Football Club, and I think it was only last year was acknowledged for 60 years, or him and his wife Janice, because Janice was there every step of the way with him, was acknowledged for 60 years of service to the Bass Football Club. He was also significantly involved at the golf club at Wonthaggi and also at the Wonthaggi Club. A fantastic family man, a fantastic family, and will be deeply missed by everybody who has known David and the Brown family. Councillor Fullerton.
Sorry, could I support those comments? Yeah, he was a incredibly well-respected person in right through Gippsland in the sporting field, particularly at Bass Footy Club and others, as you mentioned. And yeah, he'll be sadly missed. And I join you.
Thank you, Councillor Fullerton, and I know Councillor Lasserve would like to just add a couple of words as well.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I certainly endorse those statements. Certainly a gentleman and really a good bloke. And he did, with Janice, his wife at his side, did all those years voluntary work at Kirribass Footy Club, and is certainly a well-respected man in the community. So he'll be lost, certainly missed.
Thank you, Councillor Lasserve. Okay, with that, we move on to reports requiring council decision. Item number H1, planning application 190399. And as I've read that out, I've just remembered that Councillor Brown and myself will now excuse ourselves from the screen. Councillor Brown will log off. I'm not sure what happens if I log off, so I might leave mine here and I'll leave the room. And I'll hand it over to you now, Councillor Ellis. But wait a second.
Thank you, Mayor Cesari. And I like the way.
Thank you.
Thank you, CEO. I admire the way we've combined, we've had a hybrid activity there where we've gone low tech with Councillor Tazari walking out of the room and Councillor Brown logging off, and we will notify them both when they are required to return. We now face H1, which is a planning application 190399, and I will ask James Sturton to introduce the report.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. The purpose of this report is to present an application to develop the land for the purposes of the new Bunnings warehouse. The application underwent notification by notice to 300 landowners and occupiers and received 7 objections. The objections centred upon traffic concerns of the proposed roundabout, increased traffic and noise in general, delivery vehicle access and stormwater management. The proposal was referred to Regional Roads Victoria, the Department of Environment, Land, Water and Planning, and also internal council departments whom have all granted consent. The proposal is deemed consistent in directing sustainable development towards regional centres and also along major transport links. The use is considered consistent with the industrial use zone of the land, and the proposed alterations to the road network have met the objectives of Council and Regional Roads Victoria. It is recommended that Council resolve to issue a notice of decision to grant a planting permit for application 190399, subject to the attached conditions. Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, James. A very good introduction. I would ask somebody to put the motion. I can see Councillor Lark has his hand up. I'm wondering if that's what he's going to do. He's also muted, so I need him to unmute himself.
Yes, I'd like to put the motion, thank you.
And second, who would like to second it? Councillor Fullerton has his hand up. Councillor Lark, would you like to talk to the motion?
Thank you, Acting Mayor or Deputy Mayor. I'm comfortable with the planning considerations and officer's recommendation to approve this application. Also, clearly, this proposal is good for the local economy and local jobs. It demonstrates confidence in Bass Coast Shire and Wonthaggi in particular as the regional hub for commerce and a key driving force for the entire Shire's prosperity. Bunnings' role as a good corporate citizen is also impressive, and I wish to highlight a few aspects. The professional, caring and timely way in which they manage the move of vulnerable people from the construction site in concert with the service providers without fanfare. Their commitment to the environment and sustainability, including environmental education in schools, targets for reduction of carbon emissions and transitioning towards using more renewable energy, reducing waste from landfill, reducing waste, improving recycling and diversion of waste from landfill, water-wise programs and responsibly sourced timber policy and practice. That's all for now. I will have further to say on the community orientation of Bunnings in my summing up. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Lark. Councillor Fullerton.
Yeah, thank you. I'm happy to second the motion. It's a huge vote of confidence in the region from by the Bunnings Group. I certainly endorse that and wish them well. There are issues when Councillor Lark mentioned the timber policy. There's areas of that I don't agree with as far as representing local facilities, but I'm happy to support the application for the proposed development.
Thank you, Councillor Fullerton. Would anybody else like to speak to the motion? Councillor LaServe, then Councillor Whelan.
Thank you, Councillor Ellis. Look, you know, I read the objections to it, and a lot of them are based around the stormwater, traffic management, noise, and I think that the report, the recommendation certainly covers that because before the building permit, the amended plans, which are generally in accordance with the development plans, need to be prepared to satisfy the responsible authorities for those amendments. But in saying that, I mean, one of the comments that really highlighted it to me that the previous, now it's been pulled down, it's been it's a rubble at the moment, but it's an eyesore. And you know, some people might say a big warehouse like Bunnings is an eyesore as well coming into your community, but it certainly employ a lot of people. One of my certainly a focus that I would like the officers to consider having discussions with Bunnings about the sustainability of that building. I'd like to, at Bass Coast our principles are around climate change. I would hope that they sit well with Bunnings and that they use their new build to build an example of exactly what the sustainability principles are and follow that through. They, as a social conscience, so I think that would be a great thing. And the intersection, the roundabout, that roundabout is just hazardous best of times, let alone when you've got school, kinder, and people trying to get in and out of that area. So a roundabout certainly will at least be able to manage that better, and as it comes, that can be expanded. So yeah, I'm happy to support the recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor LaServe. Councillor Whelan.
Thanks, Mr. Deputy Mayor. Yeah, look, I support the proposal as well, and a couple of comments. And I know Councillor Lark mentioned it quite well in terms of the social contribution that Bunnings have made in rehousing a lot of people, or will at least working with the agencies to do so, and I admire that. And also in relation to climate change, so they did divest from their coal assets as well, which in my mind is a big tick for them. And taking the comments of Councillor LaServe just a step further, the council has declared a climate emergency, and I acknowledge the track record of Bunnings would be an ideal and Wesfarmers ideal partners indeed for us in furthering those interests. And I would ask that the officers, environment officers and sustainability officers in particular, follow up to brief Bunnings on where we are in terms of our declaration of a climate emergency and our plans for that, and seek them to join us as partners in that approach. And I think that would be a wonderful way for them to contribute to the community as well. There may be opportunities, you never know, although I do understand that a mob like Bunnings do dot their I's and cross their T's and will have their forward planning in terms of what they propose with roof space and all of that sort of thing. But there may well be an opportunity for them to join with the community in something like a community energy project with a PPA or something. So there could be incredible opportunities there for us to work with Bunnings. But as I say, a very professional outfit. I'm impressed with the way they've gone about this, and I'll be supporting the resolution.
Thank you, Councillor Whelan. Does any other councillor want to talk to the motion? I think we can now leave it up to councillor Lark to summarise and then we will put it to a vote. Go for it, councillor Lark.
Councillor Ellis. I would just like to cover some further general aspects regarding Bunnings as a good corporate and community citizen, including their support for communities through drought and bushfires, supporting Indigenous communities, general support of community groups, and supporting charities such as Feeding MND and other mental health campaigns and many other community activities. I'm sure we're all looking forward to when we can get back to having a weekend sausage sizzle, onion on the bottom of the bread, of course, at Bunnings. And I wish Bunnings well in their new endeavours and as an integral contributor to the health and wellbeing of the Bass Coast Shire community. Thank you, Bunnings, for supporting our community. Let's put it to a vote.
Thank you, councillor Lark. Let's do exactly that. Who's in favour of this motion? Okay, I'll just read out the names starting from the left of my screen. Councillor Kent, in favour. Councillor Rothfield, Councillor Lark, Councillor Whelan, who looks like he's having a bit of difficulty there, Councillor Whelan, Councillor Laserve and Councillor Fullerton. Motion carried. Thank you. Can an officer now get in touch with Councillor Brown and also Councillor Tazari and return them to their rightful place? I'll pause the meeting while that happens. Hopefully that'll happen fairly soon.
Thank you, everybody, and welcome back. Thank you to Councillor Ellis, who I'm sure in my absence did a fantastic job sitting in the chair. Brings us now to item number H2, planning application 190293, 58 Bruce Road, Silverleaves, to be presented by Mr. Sturton.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The purposes of this report is to present an application to remove vegetation and develop the land for the purposes of a single dwelling at 58 Bruce Road, Silverleaves. The application was advertised and received 7 objections. The objections focused upon proposed workshop in the front setback, general neighbourhood character and vegetation removal. Amended plans have been received following notice, which removed the proposed workshop, reduced concrete pavement to a permeable surface and amended the finished floor levels of the ground floor. The application has been assessed against the Bass Coast planning scheme, and it is found that the proposal balances the as-of-right use for a dwelling with the requirements of the planning scheme. It is recommended that council resolve to issue a notice of decision to grant a planning permit for 58 Bruce Road, Silverleaves. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Sturton. Councillor Fullerton, you would like to move that recommendation?
No, Mr. Sorry, I have an amendment for refusal.
You have an amendment. Can I ask
An alternative, I mean.
an alternative? Well done. Can I ask if that could be please put up on screen?
Wrong
Not
one.
that one. Thank you. Okay, so councillor Fullerton, if you could please summarise your motion without speaking to it or reading the whole notice of motion, please.
Yeah. Look, I think to sum it up, my motion is that the application be refused with the following conditions that are on screen.
Thank you, councillor Fullerton. Can I have somebody second that motion? Councillor Whelan, councillor Fullerton, you may now speak to your motion.
The application was put to us some time ago and was clearly flawed, and the AHD levels shown were wrong. The height of the building was excessive. It was actually shown at 900 mil above where it was nominated on the plans, which were clearly incorrect. The plans have been resubmitted, and I don't believe they satisfy any of those requirements. The floor level shown on the plans, I believe, is about 2.4 AHD, where the required floor level for a garage or a non-habitable room is actually 2.7 under the code. I assume it is for there because it is just up the road, and I don't see why there'd be any difference down further. It had a vegetation report submitted to support the removal of the trees, which I do not believe was prepared by a local arborist. I may be wrong, but it showed it identified our significant coastal vegetation as being insignificant, which I disagree with intensely. There was a previous application for a dwelling next door, and one of the primary considerations was that dwelling not be viewable from the Cowes Rill Road or any neighbouring vantage points, whereas I don't believe this has been considered, and it clearly will be visible. It's well above the 7 metre height limit. The way that it's shown at the moment, I believe the downstairs floor level is about floor to ceiling is about 2.2 metres. When it's corrected, it'll be 1.9 metres, and I don't believe that's high enough for a garage. So yeah, I have no confidence at all in this application, and I feel we should just refuse it.
Thank you, councillor Fullerton. Councillor Whelan.
Yes, I'm supporting the alternative recommendation for the reasons councillor Fullerton has set out, but also because of the fact that it's in the land subject to inundation overlay. There are concerning comments in the water technology report, which is about the management of water on the site and those sorts of things, and ultimately it will require a levy. Now, the problem where we find ourselves is with governed in these things by a piece of legislation that I think is out of date, not fit for purpose. That's the Planning and Environment Act, and that drives the recommendations of the officers. So we're driven by an historical situation that, in fact, this subdivision was approved in better times, and now we have a lower standard of water management in that area than we would in a new area. It would achieve a 3-star in the early stages at least, whereas we're requiring 5-star in any new developments. So we've got a problem there. Now, I know the Minister, or at least I believe the Minister, has acknowledged the issue with the Act and is having work done for new legislation. And of course, I could pay him credit for the work on the distinctive areas landscapes, which should be starting to see these spots as being significant landscapes. The problem is, as the arborist comes in and says trees are not significant, but he does not, I believe, take into account their environmental significance and their habitat significance, as Councillor Fullerton has said. So I think there's fundamental problems here, and what is lacking here is policy direction around how we manage the fact that we've got existing developments in LSIO areas. We're not getting that. We're not getting that in relation to the sea, to coastal erosion either. We clearly need to be pushing for that. That's where our advocacy needs to be. I do feel for the people who have put up this submission, because here we are putting them they're doing what they're entitled to do, haven't done it as well as perhaps they could have. But the situation leaves them in a very difficult position because of that lack of policy direction, policy support, so that we have somewhere to go in terms of how we manage these situations. I think it should be an advocacy point for the council going forward. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Whelan. Would anyone else like to speak to or against this amended motion? The motion has it now in front of us. Councillor Rothfield.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Look, in good conscience, I actually will be voting against this, the motion that Councillor Fullerton has put forward. And I get all the issues that he has, but you've got a dozen homes along that stretch. It's not like it's a brand new estate. There's a dozen homes. These people have bought a block of land and they want to build. They are fine. There's only 2 blocks of land on that road that haven't been built on, and this is one of them. And we're saying now, it doesn't matter that everybody else has been able to build a house. You can't because of a few items such as the water inundation and what have you, which is like the water technology report states that there is no impact by the various storm tides calculations that they've done to the year 2040. And in fact, there is an impact by the 1% AEP storm tide for the years 2070 to 2100. Seriously, are we actually we're going to hold them to the fact that there's modelling that shows that they will be impacted in 50 years' time, therefore we're not going to let them build a house? I just find this is really difficult. We've allowed building in Silverleaves to have progressed. I think this is beyond our remit to say that you cannot build there in a residential area. And as I say, the various water technology reports and Melbourne water conditions, they've all accepted it as being okay. And we're now turning around and saying no. The next step is VCAT, and you know very well that the owners will probably be given the nod at VCAT. So I just find, no, I can't agree with it.
Thank you, Councillor Rothfield. Would anyone else like to speak to or against this amended motion? Councillor Ellis.
I nearly spoke without unmuting myself. Sorry, Mayor Tazari.
Councillor Ellis.
Trying not to draw a long bow on this, but up in the Gerties, we've got 600-year-old grass trees that are going to be removed under a work permit that was issued nearly 100, well, the basis of it is 100 years old mining lease. I think that we have not a lot to be proud of in this area, given that Australia leads the world in species extinction. And I get that everything says that we should approve this, but given that the world's changed in the time from the original subdivision here, and that it's gotten to the point where every single tree, no matter how scrappy or how anyway, I won't go on about the condition of trees. We need to value each bit of vegetation, and particularly here, where the tea trees that are going to be removed provide habitat for native birds and also echidnas. And we are really running out of room for these creatures. And I just say that although we can approve this, I think this is a time when we need to think about our species extinction behaviours and also our climate emergency and start putting that at the forefront. I will be supporting this change. Thank you, Mayor Tazari.
Thank you, Councillor Ellis. Would anyone else like to speak to or against this amended motion? Councillor Kent.
Thank you, Mayor. It could have been so easy to stay quiet. I fully support the comments from Councillor Rothfield. Being a new home owner and builder, if I was in the shoes of the owners and I looked at the overhead picture showing my block of land surrounded by dozens of houses, I'd be devastated if my dream had suddenly gone gone. I fully understand where all the councillors are coming from in regards to this permit application. I personally believe that yes, it hasn't been done as well as it should have been done, but I just feel for the owners of this property, especially when we look at what it's surrounded by at the moment. Yes, things should have been done maybe, 40, 50 years ago. And I remember when I used to holiday just a couple of 100 metres up the road from it and what that area looked like then, and it has certainly progressed. So yes, look, I'll be voting against this motion.
Thank you, Councillor Kent. Would anyone else like to speak to or against the amended motion as it reads on screen? No? Councillor Fullerton, would you like to summarise or put it to a vote?
I would like to summarise, Matt. Look, I certainly do not disagree with Councillor Rothfield in the right to build. Everybody has, and the land is there. I'm not saying they should not be building on the site. It alarms me when people are buying into an area which is as beautiful as Silverleaves used to be, where it's heavily treed, which is the reason people are going there. I'm totally dismayed to constantly see clear felling with the excuse of 1030 and whatever. And we have regulations there. There's a floor height requirement for for habitable rooms and non-habitable. The proposal is clearly wrong. It has disregarded that. The vegetation report has said, oh, it doesn't matter, you can cut them down, they're not relevant trees. Well, I'm sorry, but they are. They're extremely relevant. The proposal is to build a building from almost boundary to boundary, or as close as you can get from boundary to boundary. And it's a large structure. It's a matter of what we're allowing. I'm not saying they shouldn't be allowed to build. It's the type of structure. It's just not. I don't believe it's what we want in that area, is clear felling and massive structures like that being built. I need clarification on whether the viewing from the Cowes Rill Road and other vantage points is going to be considered, because I don't see it mentioned anywhere, and I know that neighbouring buildings have been treated with the same thing. There's a lot of issues in relation to it, and I was considering simply delaying the process and having it referred to a future meeting, but there seems to be no attempt to actually correct it and clarify it. So, and when you say VCAT, yep, sure, it'll go to VCAT, and that the result of VCAT will be dependent on the panel member you get. So it's just the way it is. But as it stands at the moment, I'm not happy with it, and I know most of the neighbourhood is not happy with it.
Thank you, Councillor Fullerton. We'll put the amended motion to a vote as it reads on the screen. All in favour of the amended motion, please raise your hands. Councillor Whelan, Councillor Fullerton, Ellis and Brown, and against Councillor Tassari, Laserve, Rothfield, Lark and Kent. Lost. So we now go back to the original notice of motion as it reads. Can I have somebody move and second that? Councillor Rothfield, and seconded Councillor Kent. Councillor Rothfield.
I'm not sure there's too much to actually say about it, Councillor, Mr. Mayor. I do think the alternative is that we do accept the decision to grant a permit, and with all the various conditions that we have within the actual item.
Thank you, Councillor Rothfield. Councillor Kent.
My very words too, just noting it is a planning application, so hopefully a lot of people have heard us today. Thank you.
Thank you, councillor Kent. Would anyone else like to speak to or against the recommendation as it reads?
Mayor Tessari, could I foreshadow a deferment of this matter until plans are submitted that are actually correct?
You can. Councillor Fullerton, thank you. Okay, would anyone else like to speak to or against this recommendation as it reads? No, councillor Brown.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Personally, as an individual councillor, I'd prefer to see this deferred rather than the applicant get their application granted at this stage, and make sure that the plans are correct, because I do have concerns about the measurements and the accuracy of the plans. Thank you.
Thank you, councillor Fullerton. Anyone else like to speak to or against this recommendation as it reads? No,
So,
councillor Fullerton.
yeah, so
Are you
Could I just-
speaking to the?
if I could.
Yep.
Yeah, as I've said, I believe that the plans are incorrect, and I don't see why there's a recommendation for approval.
Councillor Fullerton, can I just clarify? Are you speaking to the recommendation as it reads now? Because you can't speak to your foreshadowed motion.
Well, I guess it's one and the same. I'm foreshadowing a motion, but I'm actually speaking to the motion that, in stating that I don't believe we're in a position to approve it because it's the information on the submitted drawings is simply wrong. And I don't know what we're approving if that's the case. It's just incorrect. We can't do it.
Thank you, councillor Fullerton. Councillor Rothfield, would you like to, would anyone else like to speak to or against the recommendation as it reads? No, councillor Rothfield, would you like to summarise or put it to a vote?
Well, Mr. Mayor, I'd just like to, given that there's a proposal for a foreshadowed motion, I would like to say.
Sorry, councillor Rothfield, if you could just 1 second. We've lost councillor Ellis.
Oh.
Councillor Ellis, are you still there or? So does that, just seeking clarification from governance, does that mean now councillor Ellis does not take part in the vote? He's left the meeting, okay? So it'll be noted that councillor Ellis has now left the meeting and won't take part in the vote. So councillor Rothfield, if you may continue.
Yes, I was just going to say that given that there is going to be a foreshadowed motion for deferral, I'm actually happy to vote against this. I don't know how that goes in governance, but I'm happy to vote against this motion now, even though I moved it, because I am not a building expert. And am I hearing that I may not vote against it, or am I able to?
I was just waiting for you to finish, councillor Rothfield, and I was going to seek clarification from governance if I could. As the mover of a motion, are you allowed to vote against it? My understanding is you can.
Yep.
And we've been reassured you can.
All right. Okay. So I'd just like to finish by saying the reason I will be voting against it is that there are, I know Councillor Fulton's an expert in that area, and I respect his opinion in the various issues that he mentioned. And provided it's not just based on the fact that there's going to be water under their feet in a few years' time, it's the fact that there is issues with the community and the building and the height and what have you. I'm happy to look at the deferral. Yeah.
Thank you, councillor Rothfield. We'll put it to a vote. All in favour of the recommendation as it reads. Councillor Lark. And against? Councillor Tessari will serve Rothfield, Kent, Fullerton and Brown. And
Mayor Tessari, could I have a division, please?
I was just going to clarify first, councillor Fullerton. I didn't see councillor Whelan's hand. So did you abstain, councillor Whelan? And you're muted, sir. Councillor, sir. Sir, Councillor Whelan, you're muted.
spelt with a C, no doubt. Yes, I'll vote against it.
A vote against. Okay, so a division has been called. So all in favour of the recommendation as it reads. Councillor Lark, and against. Councillor Tassari, Lasserve, Rothfield, Whelan, Kent, Fullerton and Brown. And on a side note, Councillor Ellis has left the meeting, so he did not vote. So the recommendation is lost. We now go to Councillor Fullerton's foreshadowed motion to defer this application.
Sorry, I'd like to move. Sorry.
So I'm being told a procedural deferral until the next meeting, Councillor Fullerton. Is that what you're requesting?
Yeah, until the next meeting or until plans are submitted that are satisfactory to the planning department and council. Hopefully.
Do we need to see that?
Yes.
So Mr Mayor, that the matter be deferred to a future meeting of council. Is that the motion, Councillor Fullerton?
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you. Do we need to get a no?
You need a second.
What was that? We don't.
A second.
We do. So I need a seconder for that motion, Councillor Rothfield, and we need to put it to a vote. All in favour of the recommendation or the deferral as put forward by Councillor Fullerton. All in favour, Councillor Tassari, Councillor Lasserve, Rothfield, Lark, Whelan, Kent, Fullerton and Brown. Thank you. Before we move on to the stat reports, I'll now just clarify that Councillor Ellis has rejoined the meeting, and I will just check that Councillor Ellis can see and hear everything okay.
Yeah, sorry about that, Mayor Tassari. My internet dropped out because somebody rang me and I'm using the phone as a modem, so I had to reconnect. I apologise for that.
That's fine. Thank you, Councillor Ellis, and welcome back. You're back in time for the stat reports. So,
My favourite part of the meeting. Thank you.
if I could request, please, somebody move and second the motion that the agenda items I1 to I4 be considered as a block. Councillor Lasserve, seconded Councillor Rothfield. All in favour? Councillor Tassari, Ellis, Lasserve, Rothfield, Lark, Whelan, Kent, Fullerton and Brown. Carried. Would anybody like to discuss any of the reports? No? So I now request the councillor move and second that the recommendation attached to the agenda items I1 to I4 be adopted. Can I have a mover? Councillor Ellis, seconded. Councillor Lasserve. All in favour? Councillor Tassari, Ellis, Lasserve, Rothfield, Lark, Whelan, Kent. What are you doing there, Councillor Fullerton? Are you in favour? Thank you. And Councillor Brown. Carried. You're not done yet, Councillor Fullerton. You can't put your feet up yet. Okay, urgent business.
Must be close.
Urgent business. So we do have Councillor Lark wishing to advise. He would like to introduce some urgent business. So, Councillor Lark, if you would like to summarise your urgent business or why it should be accepted as urgent business without talking to your urgent business, please.
Yeah, I'll read the motion, Mayor Tassari. It's quite short. The motion is that Council engage an independent expert to complete economic modelling on the impacts of COVID-19 on the entirety of Bass Coast Shire and report to Council by 28 February 2021. In that regard, the modelling to forecast the economic impact of COVID-19 over a 5-year period with an understanding of the likely depth and duration of the economic downturn to help guide Council's ongoing efforts in Bass Coast Shire's recovery. The modelling to also take account of Victorian state government restrictions as outlined in the so-called coronavirus COVID-19 roadmap the opportunity to leverage other economic studies relevant to Bass Coast Shire prepared at the federal, state and local level, including but not exclusive to such organisations as Destination Gippsland, Phillip Island Nature Parks, Destination Phillip Island, agricultural, industry and business groups, and any other pertinent federal, state, Gippsland regional and council strategies and plans. Thank you.
Thank you, councillor Lark. Can I have somebody second that this be accepted as urgent business? Councillor Brown, again, you waited to the 11th hour, but well done. Councillor, so we now debate that this be accepted as urgent business. Councillor Lark.
Thank you. I envisage the modelling report would describe the forecast economic impacts of the COVID-19 pandemic.
Sorry, councillor Lark, we're not debating the business. We're debating why this should be accepted as urgent business.
Okay, well, do you want me to put forward an argument as to why it's urgent business, or is it?
As to why this is urgent business, as clarified in the local laws, or the why this is urgent to have to be put forward to this meeting right now.
Okay. In my opinion, there is no integrated plan for the entirety of Bass Coast Shire's economic.
Again, councillor Lark. Again, councillor Lark. We're not debating the urgent business. We're debating why it has. You're asking.
Ask Ms. Jones for clarification, please.
Ms. Jones,
Well,
can you?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, just to clarify, given the governance rules are relatively new, if the agenda for a council meeting makes provision for urgent business, business cannot be admitted as urgent other than by resolution of council, and then, and only if, one, it relates to or arises out of a matter which has arisen since the distribution of the agenda, or two, cannot safely or conveniently be deferred until next council meeting. So we need Councillor Lark to do, Mr. Mayor, is actually explain to the council or convince the council that the item needs to be discussed today without debating the motion. So it's the test of urgency that we're seeking now. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Ms. Jones. Councillor Lark.
Well, it complies with both of those provisions in terms of urgent business, and it sets the foundation for the next council plan 2021. An urgent consideration is required.
Councillor Lark. Again, it's determining why it is urgent since the release of the agenda, and why it's all suddenly become urgent and can't wait till the next meeting.
Well, I'm trying to explain.
At this point.
I'm trying to explain that the matter arose subsequent to the issue of the agenda, and two, it is urgent business because there's no economic roadmap for Bass Coast Shire, and that's required early in 2021 to facilitate preparation of the council plan.
Thank you, Councillor Lark. Councillor Brown.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I waited to the 11th hour because I just wanted to see if anyone else was going to bite. That's why I wait for the 11th hour. But I'm happy to second it because, on the one hand, I think it should be debated, and it should be. I actually think this motion should have an opportunity to go in the minutes, and. If
Councillor Brown, again, we're only debating as to whether or not this be accepted as urgent business.
Yeah, this is part of the whole problem with the urgent business area in general. Why is it urgent? Look, Councillor Lark explained that. I don't really have anything to add on that.
Thank you, Councillor Brown. Councillor Rothfield.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I'm going to just reiterate what Ms. Jones was saying. Does this item relate or arise out of a matter which has arisen since the distribution of the agenda, which was on Friday? The answer is no. Two, it cannot be safely or conveniently deferred until the next council meeting. Of course it can. This does not constitute urgent business. I'm not even going to go into the subject of what it is, but it doesn't constitute urgent business. Thank you.
Thank you, councillor Rothfield. Would anyone else like to speak to, remembering that we're only debating whether or not this is urgent business or not? Councillor Whelan.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Councillor Lark was talking about this sort of data and that during the business and community grants round. I mean, there's nothing new. That he's been talking about for a while. To actually have suddenly come up with the idea this since the agenda came out is quite ridiculous. And really, there are good reasons why it can be deferred. It can be deferred because a good reason, because we're still seeing how things are panning out from the state government end. So they are the two criteria that he needs to meet, and he probably doesn't.
Thank you, councillor Whelan. Would anyone else like to speak to or against? Councillor Fullerton.
Yeah, look, it's certainly a subject I'd like to see discussed, but look, I can't accept that we need to do it urgently now. I'd like to review it. I don't know enough about it, the costs and whatever, and the benefit, and there are many issues.
Councillor Fullerton, all we're debating at this stage is whether or not it's urgent. We're not debating the content of the motion or the urgent business.
Okay.
Thank you, councillor Fullerton. Would anyone else like to debate or speak to whether or not this is urgent business? No? I go back to you, councillor Lark, to sum up, and please remember that we are only debating at this stage whether or not the relevance of urgent business.
Well, I just don't believe that we can go into 2021 without urgently dealing with this matter to set the foundation for the next council plan.
Thank you, councillor Lark. So we'll put it to a vote now as to whether or not this be accepted as urgent business into the current agenda. All in favour of? Councillor Lark, Councillor Brown, and against? Councillor Tathari, Councillor Ellis, Laserve, Rothfield, Whelan, Kent, Fullerton. Lost?
And can I just confirm that it will be minuted and having a division on that?
It won't be minuted. It's won't be minuted. Okay. Sorry, I've got to catch up. That's it. That brings our meeting to a close. So council continues to monitor and implement the COVID-19 pandemic response and restrictions set out by the state and federal governments. Council continues with a pause on community connection sessions for the coming months. The next ordinary council meeting will be held virtually on the 21st of October 2020, commencing at 1 o'clock. It will be open to the public via live streaming. Thank you for watching the live stream of the council meeting. The meeting will now be closed to the public and will end today's live stream. So thank you so much to everybody for sitting here and viewing what is our second last meeting, and I look forward to seeing you all in just over a month's time for our final meeting. So if we might all now just sit here and pause for a second while we end the stream. Thank you so much.